Just remember, the success to building a custom range hood all begins with what you don't see. Hello again, guys. Thanks for joining me. Mike here. Hey, in today's video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a custom range hood frame. I find that it doesn't matter what kind of range hood you use, if you use planking, if you use solid wood, but they all start out with having a good frame. And when I did my first one, I had a hard time finding anybody that showed me exactly how to build this frame, because sometimes the angles get a little tricky. For those of you that have been following our progress on the house build, thanks, we really appreciate it. I totally understand if this video isn't something you want to watch, feel free to skip it. I'm just putting it out there for people who are looking to build a range hood, a custom range hood, and they're struggling with exactly how to get started. Okay guys, so behind me here was my first attempt at building a range hood, and it actually turned out pretty good. Some of the challenges I had with this range hood were the angles. This angle right here, this face angle and this side angle, they're different. Okay, so the problem was I used a car siding, okay, and you want the seams to match up. Well, if you have something that angles or tips, it tips a different direction than this tips, they rise at a different rate, okay, which makes the seams not line up. So what I had to do was, when I started facing it and putting it together, I had to just adjust these seams a little bit. I had to fudge them up a little bit just to make sure that everything matched up. It turned out good. Anybody looking at it really can't tell, but the seams aren't exactly perfect one side to the other. Okay, so before I get started, there are a couple things that I like to have. I like to actually have the range hood that we're going to be using because it makes it way easier to build the frame around the hole spacing that comes with your range hood. I also like to put the range hood together as much as possible. We're choosing an outside venting system, so it will vent out the top, go up through the range hood that I build, and it will be with this is a little bit smaller, but it'll be a 6-inch duct that goes up and then outside the house. So what I have to make sure I do is build the frame not to interfere with this duct that has to be there later. Another thing I like to have is a place in the garage or a barn or any place where you can actually build the range hood on the wall as if it was in your kitchen. So as you saw just a minute ago, the range hood that I did a couple years ago, we're going to actually build one similar to that. It's going to be a planking like this one, but it's going to be painted white. So really what I'm going to focus on with this one, and I'll have to probably tell you at the end of the video, is what angle I decided to go with to make the front face and the side face meet, so I don't have that issue with the seams not lining up. What I like to do is have some spare pieces of wood here, actually wood that I'm not going to be using, but that I can use as guides and references. Also, one other tip, we're going to have the subway tile backsplash, so whenever I'm doing my measurements for how far I want this thing away from the wall or close to the wall, I'm also going to factor in the thickness of this subway tile as far as placement of the range hood. Okay, so here's what I made so far. It's just basically the bottom frame out of 2x4s, and I got them fastened together. And what's going to happen is in these 4 holes, 1, 2, 3, 4, there's going to be a screw in the bottom of this frame that actually is going to allow the range hood to hang from it. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, since I have the base figured out, I'm going to try to figure out the back, what's actually going to fasten up against the wall. We're actually going to have a range hood that angles a little bit. So what I'm going to try to figure out is what angle is that we're happy with, and I want to use the same angle on the front. So when I get to my seams on the planking around the range hood, they should match up perfectly. Okay, so I think I figured my angle out. It's a 10. Basically, it's 10. What I did, I got one of these fancy little deals here that you had when you were in school. And what I did was I just started holding the board up here, figuring out what type of angle I wanted. And then what I did was I took this little protractor, I think they call them, and then I figured out what angle that was on the bottom to make it tip the amount that I wanted. What I did was I just put the miter box on 10, and that gave me the angle I was looking for. So what I ended up doing was two of them exactly the same. One for the left side and then one for the right side. Don't worry about this right here. This I just ended up cutting off because when the exhaust pipe goes up, I just didn't want a chance that it was going to interfere with the wood. Okay, so now I'm onto the front brace. It's a little bit more difficult, but actually once I got thinking about it, it wasn't too bad. I told you earlier that I wanted to get the same angles on both the tilt back and the tilt sideways. So I knew that I had a 10-degree angle to get this board to tip the same direction as the back brace. So now I just needed to get a 10-degree angle to have it tip backward as well, so it matches up. Okay, so back to the miter box. The way you do this one is you do the same thing. You put this on the 10-degree that you had for the back brace and lock it in. And then what you need to do is right here. This is a compound miter, so I do have those same numbers on the back here. So what I did then was I loosened this up, and then I tipped the saw until that was on 10 as well, and then locked it into place. That one cut then has given me a 10-degree turn and a 10-degree slice the other direction. Okay, so then after that cut, I came back here, put it on my brace, lined it up on the bottom board that we know is flat, and it did exactly what I wanted. It tipped a 10-degree in, and it tipped a 10-degree toward what's going to be the wall. So it all matches up with the brace that I'm going to be putting on the back, and when it comes to the planking, I shouldn't have a problem getting the seams to match up. Okay, I was able to get these back braces attached to this frame here, so now I'm just going to hang it down the wall. Okay, so even though I have these front support brackets cut, they're ready to go on here. What I decided to do was to add these supports. If I don't have these, what I find is that the front of this thing gets a little bit flimsy. So what I did was I fastened these to the frame here, fastened to the frame here. I can actually hang on this thing right now, and so it would support a really, really heavy range hood. Okay, so it's come together pretty good. As you can see, I did get the front supports put on here. I got the back supports put on here. I got these support brackets to give it strength to hold the range hood. I did end up putting a bracket right here, and that will actually help the frame from moving in and out. I put a bracket right here, which will keep these two nice and sturdy and stable. And then I also put one on this back side, and then I did put one in between these two. Now while I was adding all the support brackets, I did make sure that I always had room for this exhaust pipe to fit in there. And as you can see, when we get it all put together, there's plenty of room for it to move around in here, and it shouldn't be a problem hooking it up. So now the last thing I'm going to do, now that I'm all squared up and everything is good, I'm going to take it down, and then I'm going to actually put a little frame around this top, which I'll be able to fasten the crown molding to when I start putting the skin on it. Hey guys, I'm just wrapping up this frame for the range hood. It's turning out great. The first one I did took me a lot longer than this one, but that's pretty typical how things go. If you guys like the way that this slopes on the front, and you like this matching slope on the side, just remember a 10-degree cut is what it is. And like I said, that's only if you like the same angle on the side as you do on the front. So that way, when it comes to planking it, if that's what you decide to do, the seams will match up perfectly. Now, if you're going to do a different type of range hood where you're just going to face it with solid wood and then paint it and trim it out and different stuff, it really doesn't matter what the angles are quite as bad as if you're using plank that has grooves. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this video up here pretty quick. The frame's done, which is the most important part of the whole project. And I couldn't really find how to make a good frame on YouTube, so that's why I thought I'd do this video. So if you guys like the video, feel free to give me a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and I'll keep the videos coming. And I will also, in the future, post a video where I'm going to actually face this thing with the plank. So thanks again for joining me, guys, and we will definitely catch you next time.